Dear colleagues and friends, this brief video sets the stage for our event today, which commemorates the World Day of Remembrance and its theme, Remember, Support, Act. Thanks very much for joining us. On this day, we remember the nearly 1.3 million lives lost and the millions more serious injuries which occur on the world's roads each and every year. And we express our outrage at the scale of this carnage. We call for support for those who suffer long-lasting consequences from the physical and psychological trauma they endure, and for their bereaved families. And we demand action to prevent such tragedies, because the best way to honor the memory of those who have died on the world's roads is for governments and partners all over the world to fulfill the commitments they have made. The newly released Global Plan for the Decade of Action for Road Safety 2021-2030 provides a blueprint for this national and local policies and programs to help do just that. The Global Plan continues to promote safe roads, vehicles and behaviors, and life-saving emergency care. But it also advocates for modes of transport like walking and cycling, which, when they are made safe, can contribute greatly to health and well-being. Thanks to all of you who have started to implement the plan already and are working to achieve the Decade of Action's target of reducing deaths and injuries by at least 50% by 2030. It's my pleasure to host this event today, which is divided in 3 parts along the lines of the Remember, Support, Act theme. And I would firstly like to introduce you to Zoleka Mandela, the Global Ambassador for the Child Health Initiative. Her statement will be followed by the first of a 3-part poem by Chaka Campbell of Soul City Arts. This poem is entitled Remember. Zoleka, over to you.
As a mother who lost her daughter to road traffic injury, I can tell you that the pain never goes away. My daughter, my beautiful Zanani, lost her life in the blink of an eye. It took less than a second. A life full of joy and hope and full of promise for the future was gone. My daughter was killed on a Johannesburg road only hours after her 13th birthday. As a mother, I was plunged into darkness. I can tell you that I never recovered. Over the last 10 years, millions of families have suffered as mine has done. We carry a burden that no one should ever have to carry. I have campaigned over the last decade, calling for action alongside so many others who have lost loved ones. We have demanded change. We have urged our leaders to put life-saving measures in place to prevent road traffic injury. But there has been nowhere near enough action. Targets have not been met. Funding has not been made available. The rate of death and injury on our roads has remained monstrously high. When our leaders know exactly what the solutions are, and those solutions are completely within their grasp, their lack of action is nothing short of disgraceful. This is an insult to all the many millions who have lost loved ones on the world's roads. So at the launch of this new decade of action for road safety, I join my fellow campaigners, victims, families, and communities around the world in a clear message to our leaders: no more excuses. The answers are right in front of you. Low-speed streets, particularly with a vulnerable and traffic mix. Safe crossings and sidewalks. Action on drink driving. Safe vehicles and helmets. Road traffic injuries are predictable and preventable, so we urge you to put the safe system in place. And if you still need reminding, it's all in the global plan we're launching today. If you still need convincing, and by this stage you shouldn't, you should know that this is also an agenda that does not compete with your priorities. It is essential and urgent for them. We need urgent action for our health and well-being. Safe streets make walking and cycling possible. They encourage healthy lifestyles and create livable cities. And all this is more crucial than ever as we build back from COVID-19. We need urgent action for our young people. We can stop the biggest killer of young people in its tracks. We can and must give all children and adolescents a safe and healthy journey to school. This must no longer be a burden on livelihoods and a destroyer of young lives. We need urgent action for our climate, a shift from car dependence to zero carbon active travel, a shift to public transportation, cleaner air, and lower CO2 emissions. This is a call to action of the Streets for Life campaign. This is a campaign for the decade that NGOs, communities, and youth have been leading. Let's all join them. So for our children, for the young people of the world, and the future of our planet, we call for real commitment and sustained action. Let this new decade not be one of excuse, but one of hope for millions, and one of real change. Thank you.
As we grow up, we learn about math in class. We are taught addition and subtraction, what increases and what can be taken away with a simple symbol change. Today, the symbol changes by the second. Every 24 seconds, the world rediscovers what aftermath means, what minus means. Minus father, minus daughter returning from a meal, minus mother, minus cousins behind his first automobile. We are made to discover too early the mathematics of loss. And every day the lessons find their way into old photos and keepsakes, into a typical Sunday morning sitting on the lips of a farewell prayer or a birthday celebration with an empty seat that now fills the room. This new minus, as simple as loss, as death, is as simple as breath, but we will never change your name to the deceased. You will always live in our hearts as temples we will use to pull dreams from when the darkness kisses us into slumber. We will remember you as mortar to martyrs. Your beauty will remain air circling our lungs and giving us life to move forward even as we fear what this same movement has already taken away. They may have been robbed from the earth, but it is the earth that will love them back onto our tongues, in our poems, prayers, and song. And your names, never forgotten, will forever live on.
My dear friend Zoleka, I've heard you tell the story of losing Zenani many, many times, but it never fails to break my heart. Please know that we all grieve with you, and that your story, and the way many other similar stories, are an impetus to all of us to make roads safe. I would now like to introduce Peter Fraser, President of SARA Group, which stands for Safer Australian Roads and Highways, whose statement will be followed by the second part of Chaka Campbell's poem, Support. Peter, over to you.
Everyone has a right to get home safe to their loved ones every day, no exceptions. I got brought into this space back in 2012 when my beautiful daughter Sarah Fraser was travelling from our home in the Blue Mountains west of Sydney down to our regional centre about 400 kilometres away so that she could start university. She wanted to be a photojournalist, and the work that she produced was extraordinary. The trouble was she never got that opportunity. Sarah's car overheated, which meant that she lost power which also meant that she lost her brakes, she lost power steering, and she had to pull over wherever she could. That road hadn't been built to the government's own specifications, which would have required a 3-metre wide emergency lane to not only protect a person who had broken down in a car, but also in a heavy vehicle. Sarah had the experience of having cars and trucks pass her at high speed, only centimetres away from her vehicle. I know this because she left me a voicemail saying, "Dad, I'm terrified. Cars and trucks are passing just inches away from me. I'm really worried that they could hit me." Sarah had been there for more than an hour when the tow truck driver arrived to load her vehicle. The problem was just 63 seconds later, a truck driver was on approach and for at least 300 metres, more than 11 seconds, didn't look ahead. He drove directly in to Sarah and the tow truck driver, killing both and leaving my beautiful daughter in pieces on the Hume Freeway. No parent should ever experience what we had to go through. No one should ever lose a loved one in what was clearly completely avoidable circumstances. Two days after Sarah was killed, we decided we had to do something in our grief. My eldest son, Ben, came up with the idea of creating an organisation that would focus on protecting the vulnerable. He called it Safer Australian Roads and Highways, Sarah, and our road safety work would be in her name. So at my son's instigation, we created Safer Australian Roads and Highways as an NGO. And over the course of the last almost 10 years, we've been fortunate in being able to successfully lobby our state and territory governments and the Commonwealth so that we can improve road safety here. We've also been fortunate to be able to create such things as National Road Safety Week and to partner with our governments and corporations, unions, education and other NGOs so that we bring that week, which occurs every May, into the focus of every Australian. We're also proud of the work with those international leaders, including the Global Alliance of NGOs for Road Safety, FEVA, and of course, I'm incredibly privileged to be a board member for the International Road Victims Partnership, and I thank all our members for their support of World Day of Remembrance. But at the end of the day, I'm just a grieving dad, grieving for the loss of my beautiful daughter, Sarah, and nothing will replace that. All I can do is to try to stop other families, other loved ones from experiencing what we go through every single day. So for this World Day of Remembrance, the best way to honour road trauma victims is to ensure our community firstly pauses to reflect on the avoidable loss of life and serious injuries that occur to people every single day, and to stand in solidarity and support the victims of road trauma, including their families, to advocate for the implementation of evidence-based practices, road rules, legislation, and change campaigns. And so importantly, to show advocacy by proudly displaying road safety symbols on our vehicles or in our homes or businesses. We need to make road safety the community's priority because in working together we will reduce these avoidable deaths and serious injuries. We must all drive as if our loved ones are on the road ahead. We must drive so others survive. We already have the technology and know how to massively reduce trauma. So on this day of remembrance, let's lead the necessary advocacy so that our politicians, our bureaucracies and indeed the general community choose to become road safety champions.
One single road crash, 1 million erased, plus 50 million more injured. Now add the many faces of loved ones needing to walk toward another day. after the math is summed. What was beauty and what feels like devastation hold hands when the world thrashes about itself without support. Nonetheless, every night alone, in their own quiet, each left behind relative must pull out the growl stuck to their ribs. This is a struggle to bear. To lose a son is a new language poured down your throat where no one seems to comprehend the hurt. To be once caretaker and provider, to being taken care of and a survivor in a moment's glance, spells out help as both verb and adjective. Because when depression works through the body, it homes itself between things, in places hard to reach, and empties the parts of yourself unused. And yes, the world is suffering from all directions. Hunger, pain, wars. But there are hidden places that do not see the headlines in these times. The risk of road traffic crashes more than 3 times higher in low-income countries than in high. This is why, when there are no answers, just hope clinging to the mouths of our children, the world must walk into each other's open arms with support. Support for the ones left behind. Support for the organizations dedicating their time to more laws, more legislation, more cooperation from governments, because while the lost deserve to be remembered, the remaining must slice a piece of each day to continue living, to reach forward and honor their memories in any way they can.
Thank you, Peter. Yours is another heartbreaking story. I admire the courage of both you and Zoleka, who turned your personal tragedies into an urgent cry for safety on our roads. Sarah, Zenani, Aaron, Mansour, Darren, Kevin, Tiago, Santini, the list goes on and on. Each one of these lives lost mattered. Each death was one death too many. This is why it's vital to move to action. For our final session of the day, I would like to introduce you to Maolin Matangai, Communications Manager at yours, Youth for Road Safety. Mao will provide the guidance on how to act for road safety. Her statement will be followed by remarks from Abdullah Shahid, President of the UN General Assembly, who will speak about the importance of the forthcoming high-level meeting on global road safety. His statement will be followed by Chaka Campbell's final poem in the series entitled Act.
Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Maolin Makatangay and I work with yours, Youth for Road Safety. Today, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about the global plan, especially about how we can use it as a tool to take action and implement different road-related projects and policies in our different areas and communities. So the global plan has 3 key elements. You have the what's. What areas do we need to focus on in order to achieve the targets listed in the new decade of action for road safety? We have the hows. How do we achieve these things? And we have the who's. Who are the people responsible? For the what's, we have multimodal transport and land use planning. We have safe road infrastructure. We have safe vehicles, safe road use, and post-crash response. So essentially, these are factors that we have within the safe systems approach that says that every part of society needs to be working together in order to achieve 50 by 30 or reduce the number of road-related deaths and injuries by 50% by the year 2030. And so for the house, we have financing, legal framework, speed management, capacity development, gender perspectives, technologies, and focus on low and middle income countries. So for the who's, who are responsible for implementing the global plan? We have governments, civil societies, which include NGOs, academia, youth, the private sector, funders, and UN agencies. So all these things come hand in hand. The what's, the how's, and the who's cannot stand alone. They need to mingle with one another, and everything needs to be considered in order to implement the road safety targets we have in the Decade of Action through the Global Plan. So the question now is, how do we use the Global Plan as a tool? How do we use it to take action and make sure that our peers, our families, and our friends don't have to suffer on the world's roads? So as a young person and as a member of the Global Youth Coalition for Road Safety, the Global Plan is a tool that helps amplify our voices. So a lot of the things listed in the Global Plan, a lot of the issues and then the struggles, we also have them in the Global Youth Statement for Road Safety. Within the youth statement, different regions around the world, young people from the regions around the world have actually told us through the youth consultations what issues they have within their countries. And we see them here acknowledged in the Global Plan. So much so that young people have been included as key stakeholders for the very first time. It'll be a tool to show to decision makers, saying, look, we're in the Global Plan, we're key stakeholders, we're the most affected when it comes to road crashes, and we need to take action. As we say in the Global Youth Statement, stop blaming us and start engaging us. Through the coalition, I've met young people who have lost their families and friends to road crashes. Not only that, but they've also suffered from injuries, however minor, because it affects them. It has long-lasting effects, not just physically, but also financially, mentally, and emotionally. It's time that we start taking action, and the Global Plan is a very necessary tool that can help us reach decision makers and turn our words into actions. So if you want to take action, download the Global Plan, print it, share it with decision makers. Use it to implement your projects and elevate your demands to policymakers and decision makers. If you're a young person who wants to take action but doesn't quite know where to start, join the Global Youth Coalition for Road Safety. Go to www.claimingourspace.org and sign up. We have resources, capacity development, tools, a platform, and so many other things in order to take action. And now we also have the Global Plan.
Roads were made to better lives, not to take lives. Sadly, 1.3 million innocent lives are lost, and an estimated 50 million more are injured on roads each year. Today, we pause to pay tribute to the fathers, mothers, sons and daughters, friends and colleagues whose lives were cut short. We remember those suffering from life-impacting injuries as a result of reckless driving and unsafe road systems. Each is an individual tragedy and a source of profound grief and pain for those left behind. Priority must be given to corrective and preventive measures. Unsafe and inefficient road systems discourage development in health, education, employment, and poverty, just to name a few. The Global Plan for the Decade of Action for Road Safety is our blueprint for collective actions towards safer and sustainable roads. To galvanize action from member states and the international community on this roadmap, I will host a one-day preparatory event on December 3rd. This will build momentum ahead of the high-level meeting on global road safety to be held on 30th June and 1st July 2022. I encourage all member states and the international community to join me in this important agenda. In memory of those who have lost their lives and in support of their families and the injured, let us redouble our efforts and action for sustainable road safety.
Be wary your disregard. This arrogance pushed into your actions will melt into amnesia, and we will forget that despite the enormity of the world, the reality is more absurd. As the global monetary cost of road traffic injuries is more than 500 billion each year, but we say life has no place. Life has no price. We make our lives. We shape our lives. We sacrifice and justify. But if we continue to ignore what's real, we will evolve into creatures running circles guided by an hourglass laid on its side. See, time will not stand still. Life is not statue, not stagnant. Imagine it being preserved. Imagine a safe future with a navel tied to its core, like affordable, like accessible, like sustainable modes of transportation. Imagine new headlines carrying in their mastheads a message of hope that road traffic deaths and injuries are reduced by 50% by 2030. Imagine instead a world where enough is enough pain. Imagine enough is enough strain. Imagine enough prevention measures and emergency rescue services in place. Imagine enough dreams deferred. If we had enough in place, imagine less physical. Imagine less psychological, less emotional, and just imagine the amount of suffering that could have been avoided and still can be with more policy, with more community, with a commitment to put an end to these preventable tragedies. Enough is enough.
Thanks, Mao, for highlighting the calls for action in the global plan in such a nice way. Your energy and resolve bring a bit of lightness to today's event. I encourage all governments and their partners to follow the course of action you have outlined and to engage with youth as you to fulfill your road safety commitments. Thank you also, Mr. Shahid, for reminding us of the links between road safety and achievement of a range of the Sustainable Development Goals. I want to echo your call for member states to be represented at the highest level at next year's high-level meeting of the UN General Assembly. As we close today's event, I would also like to say a warm thank you to all our speakers and to Chaka Campbell for his thoughtful and beautifully told poems. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to a close. We appreciate your presence today and your steadfast dedication to making the world's roads safe for all who use them. In the name of those who have lost their lives and their bereaved family, we must remain focused, resolute, and unyielding. Thank you very much.